Good evening and welcome to Dead Air Live. My name is Lee Walworth and welcome to tonight's show as we come into a historic time in Somerville as the cable licenses are up after 10 years and we're renegotiating now for new contracts. And actually I know if you happen to jump channels over from channel 16 on City Cable, they're doing a show tonight about negotiations with the contract. But here we have a little different bent. I have with me tonight from SCAT, Somerville Community Access Television, Abigail Norman as our guest. And Abigail, welcome. I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you.
And we want to talk tonight about what is going on with the negotiations. Why are negotiations even important? And for people that really haven't followed this, what is going on at this point in time with the contracts?
Well, the first thing that you need to know is that cable television is not like most other companies. It's a monopoly. And as subscribers know, they can really only subscribe to one cable company in Somerville. It's kind of like only being able to subscribe to one telephone company. You really don't have a choice. But the telephone company and the gas company are regulated by the state, their price structure and everything. But cable companies are completely unregulated ever since the Reagan administration. And also, unlike telephone companies and electric companies and so on, what they offer is not just gas or water, it's a means of communication, and that's something that's protected by constitutional law and by the history of American democracy, unlike other commodities.
And people have been hearing a lot lately about the franchise fee. That the title of our show is Franchise Fee, Friend or Foe. And can you tell us a little bit about how that ties in? What is this franchise fee all about, really?
Well, in order to do business in the city, the cable company has to essentially apply to the city and say, look, we know we're a monopoly. We want the right to do business in your town. We want the right to use your streets, lay our cables there, and make a lot of money here. And the city says, okay, fine, we'll give you that right if you give us something in return. Pay something back to the community. The other thing to remember, of course, is these companies are absolutely huge. Time Warner, which is our company in Somerville, is probably the biggest media company in the globe. They have business, everywhere. They're one of the top 5 media companies in the entire globe, the entire world. And they don't pay the bulk of their taxes in Somerville. In fact, they don't pay taxes in Somerville. Instead, they pay a franchise fee, and that is a fee for the use of right-of-way and a fee for the right to provide this means of communication and make a big profit in Somerville.
Now, we want you people that are out there to get your pens and pencils ready, because tonight we're going to ask you to call in. That's why the phone is here. That our phone number is 628-8826, and that if you have calls, the questions for Abigail or myself, if I can answer them, if you have comments about how your service is from Warner, and we're also going to be showing some tape from the Alderman's meeting that was held on May the 28th, and that may bring up some questions that raise some issues. So we'd like you to call in tonight at 628-8826. But meanwhile, we got some letters, or you got some letters, actually, the cable subscribers. This is dated May the 22nd, and it says, Dear Somerville cable customer, did you know that Somerville plans to nearly triple the monthly franchise fee you pay the city? You can stop them if you act now, and that's written in big, bold letters. And it goes on to say that they pay currently 3% of their bill, and they're going on and on. And in the end, the letter talks about the Somerville cable tax, they call it a tax increase, is already moving rapidly through the governmental process and could come up for a vote on May 28th, this Thursday. If you think a higher, quote, tax on your cable service is unfair, call City Hall. Call the Office of Communications. Tell them how you feel, but do it soon before time runs out. But actually, we're going to check and see right now if we have a phone call and see if this is working. Let's see. Okay. Hello? Are you there? Hello? Nope.
Hello?
Hello? Are you there? Hello?
Hello?
Hello? Hello? Hello? Well, hello? No, they were there. Hello? Okay. Well, this is going to be a loosey-goosey kind of show tonight. So that was a letter that was signed. Tell them, if you think the higher tax on your cable service is unfair, call City Hall, call the Office of Communications. Tell them how you feel, but do it soon before time runs out. Sincerely, Warner Cable Communications, Inc. That was on May 22nd. Then on May 28th, a letter from Dear Cable Subscriber. Warner Cable executives have been watching a little too much television lately. It seems they have a hard time distinguishing fiction from fact. For the past few months, they have been so concerned with generating fiction that they seem to have forgotten the real issues. We believe that as cable customers, you're entitled to the facts. This is a fact. So we'll see. The proposed 5% franchise fee by the city of Somerville is not a tax. Warner Cable alone decides how much to increase your bill, and they will continue to increase it each year.
Do you want to take these points point by point? I think it might be easier than reading the whole letter because there were a lot of points in that letter.
Well, go ahead.
What do you think?
You want to comment on that?
Sure. It's true, it's not a tax. It's a fee for the use of rights of way, and because a cable company is a special kind of company, it really isn't a tax. It's not like a normal tax.
Well, it also goes on to say that there was a recent increase. Here it is. Let me go back to this. Payment made to the city of Somerville has not increased since 1982, but Warner Cable has raised rates every single year, sometimes twice in 1 year since 1985. Their latest increase went into effect on June 1st, 1992, and another $1.73 increase.
That's
What is
true.
that?
All of that is true.
So if you're out there and you want to call 628-8826, we'll try and get our phones working, and you can talk to us about your Warner Cable service if you have any questions about the fees. But right now, we're going to let you go see some of that Alderman meeting that was done on May 28th, and this will explain how some of the fees structure were set. So why don't we go see that tape? And if you have phone calls, we'll get right to you. So please, watch the number on your screen and give us a call if you get any questions. Let's see that tape.
Mr. Train, can you approach the mic, please?
Okay, great.
Mr. Vice President, if I may, through you.
Conley.
Mr. Train, thank you for your appearance here. We were going to ask you to come in a couple of weeks to bring us up to date, but since you're here, I think it would be helpful, particularly where we had to stop so abruptly at our last meeting. Perhaps, and if you would you please try and bring us, from your point of view, up to speed on where we are. There are many of us who have gotten many phone calls from constituents, from people close to the cable community, and what we would like is a clear, concise picture of what is going on regarding the franchise fee, also known as a tax. We've seen many advertisements, as you probably are well aware of, and we would like to perhaps summarize where we have come from in this past month, particularly in light of our meeting of 2 weeks ago when we had the Warner officials up here and quite a few issues were raised that night. So if you could perhaps bring us forward from that point into where we are, I think it would be helpful. I know there's other members of the community who'd like to make a remark or two here to the board as well.
Sure. First of all, we've all endured the misinformation campaign that's been put out by Warner Cable, and if I could take a few minutes of the board's time and explain with some use of some charts exactly how the cost differential would add up between what Warner Cable paid last year and what they would pay under the new proposal. And I think it's important to point out to people, particularly people who are watching at home, that their rates are going up $1.73 on June 1st, regardless of what the Board of Aldermen does tonight. Their rates are going up in 3 or 4 days, and that has absolutely nothing to do with the city's action. That's a choice that Warner has made, as Alderman Bonomo was pointed out 2 weeks ago. They make the decision to raise rates. No one in this room, myself, anybody around this horseshoe, does not control rates. And I think that's important for people to know, because we have gotten many calls at the office, and I think most people are very supportive of what we're trying to do. They've had enough of Warner Cable, and they want the facts. And if I can take a few minutes, I'd like to try to explain that.
If I could, before you start, Mr. Train, Mr. Vice President, if you would you, just so we can clarify things, Paul, as people recall, at our last meeting, we were dealing very specifically with a request to approve a license fee that this board had to act on, and that's basically what we were doing at our last meeting. We were querying Warner Cable officials on this particular matter, and the meeting was, the discussion was stopped because a member invoked their charter right to halt the discussion. So from that particular point, that item has been left on the table, and I know several members, including myself, would like to perhaps discuss that issue again this evening, so it is remaining on the table at this particular point. But if you would, in raising your information here, would you just basically discuss the franchise fee issue that was originally our discussion last week, so we know what we're talking about?
Okay. Jack, what I have here is a chart that shows how much money is, all the funds paid to the city of Somerville for access, utility, rent, including monies that go to the separate non-city related groups such as SCAT.
Mr. Train, can we move that back a little bit, because we have some members here who aren't able to see that.
Sorry, Ken. Basically, as you can see, and I'll just go line for line fairly quickly, that in 1991, $85,000 was paid to SCAT, $130,000 was paid for rent in the old firehouse, $16,000 for production funding to SCAT to televise these meetings, $8,500 was for heating, air conditioning for SCAT, $5,000 was for maintenance of the old firehouse for SCAT, and $115,000 was paid to the city in what is called a franchise fee. And that amounts to a total of $359,500. That's what they paid the city in all its access groups last year. Under the proposal that we have before you, the amount paid to the city would go to 5% of gross revenue. That means all the money that the city would use to fund groups like SCAT, pay utilities, do things like that, would be 5% of gross revenue. Warner proposes their gross revenue will be in the vicinity of $7.2 million. 5% of $7.2 million is $360,000, an approximate increase to the city of Somerville and its access group of $500. The third chart, and I think, Jack, maybe more to your point about subscribers, would break down the increase. In other words, there's going to be a $500 increase in what's paid to the city. That's it. No more, no less. If you take that $500 and you divide it, that's the additional cost, $500, that they're paying the city and its access groups. You divide that number by 17,300 subscribers, which is the number we have in Somerville, and you get a total of 3 cents, an increase of 3 cents per year per subscriber. If you divide that 3 cents into a monthly basis, which is how you pay your bill, it's 1/4 of 1 cent per month to each subscriber. That's the difference. Regardless of what Warner Cable wants to tell anybody, those are the numbers. That's all we're asking for. What they don't tell you is that there's just a very small difference. The reason, in my opinion, that they don't want it tied to gross revenue is because their gross revenue figures will grow dramatically in the next few years. I want to point out that in the pro formas that they submitted to the city in 1982, they projected income of $4 million in the year 1992. The reality was they had $7.4 million in revenue. If you took that out over the period of this, with the pro formas they submitted to the city this year, needless to say, they would be much higher than projected. And that's why they don't want the figure tied to gross revenue, in my opinion.
Question for you, if I can stop you right there, Mr. Vice President, if I may, through you to Mr. Train. Would you be able to postulate as to what the average franchise fee is in New England around the states? I mean, you must have information about other operators and what they pay. Is this 5% consistent with what other cities in town are paying? Can you give us some background there, Paul?
Sure, absolutely. I think that's an important point to make, that Warner has made it sound like this is a revelation, something historical in the making. Certainly isn't. Cambridge, Burlington, Wilmington, Billerica, Sharon, many other communities across the state get 5% of gross revenue. Not only do they get more funding for the city and for access groups, their rates are generally lower than Warner Cable's.
And is there a difference, if you would, because I'm not 100% clear, the Warner's ads and a lot of the talk you hear is that this is additional tax. Would you make a difference between this fee and a tax? Because I think that's very important, and it's one that I want to be crystal clear on, if you would.
Sure. There's no such thing as a tax. There's no cable tax. This is the fee that they pay to the city, that they pay in every single city or town they serve in. This is the money they pay to do business in the city. It's not a tax, it's a franchise fee. And
Hi. In case you've just tuned in, I'm Lee Walworth. You're watching Dead Air Live. I'm here tonight with Abigail Norman, and we're talking about the negotiations of the contract and the cable fees. We'd really like to hear from you tonight at 628-8826 and hear your opinions about what's going on, your questions about negotiations and where they stand. But we really would like to hear from you. That's what really this show is all about. At 628-8826. Oh, hang on one second. Let's see if we can get this. Hello?
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. You're on the air.
You know, I've been watching the show here, and I've been listening to what's going on with Warner over the last couple months. If we had anybody else in the city doing business like this, wouldn't we just run them out of town? I wonder why we have to do business with Warner if they're going to be lying to us and putting out mailers, sending out lies like this.
Well, that's a good point, and there's been some question about, I understand, competition coming in.
Yeah, I got the mailing last week. I'm wondering what's going on with that. Is there any hope of getting another company in here?
Well, maybe Abigail, you could respond to that?
What I understand is that the city is currently in negotiations and that they're very, very seriously considering what's called an overbuild. That would mean that either a company would come in or the city would somehow finance a separate, completely separate cable system in the city so that people would have a choice between two companies. And if you think that's a good idea, you probably should send the postcard in that you received with that mailing from the Office of Communications.
Could you hear that?
Yes, I did. And I did. I made my mailing.
Uh-huh.
Well, great. We appreciate your call very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Let's see. Hello? Hello? Nope, I think that's it. Oh, got the audio person. Okay, again, we'd like you to call in at 628-8826. Give us a call down at SCAT. This is your opportunity to come on and talk about the Warner Cable, your I guess you're not your cable company, and what your service is like, and a chance to ask some questions. I know that was one of the issues that came up in the cable meeting, was having another company come in. Another one was the an elder discount. And I don't know, have you had contact with the elder population calling about what they feel? And we'd like to hear from you too if you're out there. What do you think about an elder discount? Remember, 628-8826.
An elder discount first was proposed by Joe Sadowski, who unfortunately passed away earlier this year, but he was very active in among seniors in Somerville, as many viewers will know. Joe spoke in one of the early hearings over a year ago, I suppose almost 2 years ago, and stood up and told Warner that seniors really needed and wanted a discount. And he pointed out what I think is true, that many, many seniors are at home, and cable, their television, is really their way to experience the outside world. And that they really don't have a lot of money, and they're pinching every penny. They really deserve a discount. Many, many cable companies give discounts. Warner has at times said that they never will give one, and I know City Hall has been pushing very hard for that. We've talked over the years to the people from the Council on Aging, and I know that a senior discount is high in everybody's list of what we want from the cable license.
Mm-hmm. I know money is tight for everyone, and it's that what's really happened at SCAT is they've had the same amount of money given to them for the last 10 years. That I know the equipment down here is, we try to produce your show each week, and we have a lot of difficulty with the equipment. I know in surrounding communities, when I go to Arlington, I've gone to hockey games there, they seem to have all the equipment. I've been to CCTV in Cambridge, and while the people in Somerville have the real heart, they certainly have the equipment in Cambridge. So how do you think it would affect SCAT if we were able to get this 5% franchise? And before you answer that, again, we'd like your thoughts and opinions at 628-8826. We really would like you folks out there to call us tonight. And here's your chance to speak. But how would it impact SCAT? What do we...
The first thing to remember is that 5% of gross revenues, that means all the money that Warner takes in related to Somerville, would come back to the city. And it would be divided up between city cable, which is channel 16, an educational channel, which we currently run, which would probably be run out of the high school, and SCAT. So it'll be divided up among those three entities. It's not that SCAT will get the whole 5%. In fact, SCAT will probably get a minority of the 5%. The rest will pass through the city.
Mm-hmm. Do you know what percentage SCAT will...
We've asked for 2%, and we've been told figures ranging from 1.57 and upward. And then, of course, you mentioned equipment, which is high on our list of what we want. And that's sort of a separate negotiation, and it's certain that we will get money for new equipment, that City Cable will also get money for new equipment, and that this new educational access group will get money for equipment. How much equipment we'll be able to buy, we're not sure yet. Mm-hmm. It would be good for people who are watching to know that the current license runs out on July 28th. And so that's the date that we're hoping to have a new license in place.
Well, I know in that last segment of tape that we saw from the Alderman's meeting of May 28th, Paul Train talked a lot about how it was only going to cost Warner Cable $500 more than it cost them this year. Mm-hmm. There seemed to be some confusion about that, and is that all they're really asking more from Warner, is $500 more, and why is that?
Yes, that's true. I'm not so sure about the $500 exactly, but it's a very small increase in the first year. The reason why, and it can be very confusing if you read Warner's letters or read certain articles in the paper, currently the formula for the funds that Warner gives to the city and to SCAT is very confusing. They give 3% of basic revenues. That means the minority of subscribers who only subscribe to basic cable, not any of the paid channels, New England Sports Network, HBO, or anything like that, not ads, not remotes, not any of that stuff. Only 3% of that basic goes to the Office of Communications to run City Cable Channel 16. On top of that, $85,000 goes every year to SCAT. On top of that, Warner pays $130,000 every year to finance the new public safety building in the form of rent on this building, and they also pay probably between $6,000 and $8,000 a year for utilities in this building, which is shared by us with the Portuguese American League. Now, they also pay a $16,000 contract for the coverage of municipal meetings, which SCAT does up at City Hall, town aldermen's meetings and school committee meetings. Now, viewers who are trying to follow this without their pencil might feel like these are a lot of numbers, and they are. It's hard to keep track of them. But if you add all those numbers up, it comes to just a fraction below what would equal if you took 5% of the current gross revenues, that is to say, all Warner's revenues per year in Somerville. So in 1992, the figures are almost equal. Mm-hmm. They really are talking about somewhere between $500 and a couple $1,000 maximum total complete for the first year difference. Where the difference really comes is as the years go by, currently the fee remains almost flat. It's only City Cable that has been able to raise its revenue from Warner every year because it's tied to revenue. In the coming years, under the new contract, all of us will be tied to the fortunes of Warner. So when Warner experiences boom times, as we expect they will continue to do, all of us will benefit, and we won't remain flat the way things have been going. In fact, if you took a look at Warner's rationale for raising rates, you would say that really the money that they've paid to City Cable and SCAT over the years has decreased as a portion of their revenues. Right, because we've all gotten flat money, kind of like being on a Social Security without a cost of living increase while the economy inflates. That's how it's been for 10 years. Now we'll be tied to their budget. So you really could say, if Warner really feels that rates are tied to the cost they pay for access, they should have lowered people's rates over the years as that has all gone forward, and we know that hasn't happened.
So it's really a matter of tying it to growth. If they grow,
exactly,
you'll grow. Where here you've had your hands tied basically for... And I know there's been cutbacks at SCAT in the last 2 years. The hours have closed, the staffing has reduced, and as we said, the equipment is not what it used to be.
Right.
Again, we would like you folks out there to call us here at 628-8826 if you'd like to talk about the cable negotiations. And I'd like to tell our tape person back there to cue us up to 1645 of the tape. I think that's a good spot for us to talk about. That has to do with how SCAT has been level funded and what that has meant to SCAT. And that's on the Alderman's meeting again of May 28th. But if we really want to hear from you, is there anyone out there at 628-8826? And if you want to, give us a call. And maybe the other, actually it's 7:30, I think on Channel 16 is their show ending.
I'm not sure.
I think they're running an hour show talking about cable negotiations tonight. And maybe they'll jump over to us. But right now we're going to get ready to go to a tape shortly when we get there. We're going to talk about what it's been like for SCAT to be level funded for 10 years. Now, do you think a new contract, how long a new contract would...
How long a new contract would be? There's some discussion.
You know what? I want to interrupt you because we have a phone call, what we've been waiting for. Let's see if we can get them. Hello? 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 Oh. Hello? No, we're experiencing difficulties.
A TV show.
Hello?
Hello.
Hello?
Hi.
Hi, you're on the air.
I'm talking to you.
Thank you for your call here.
I'm a senior citizen.
Oh, wonderful. Good to hear from
I
you.
have a fixed income,
Uh-huh.
and I'm trying to keep up with these people. It's impossible.
Uh-huh.
It's getting tougher and tougher all the time. Matter of fact, I told my wife I think I'm going to drop it altogether because I can't afford it.
Uh-huh.
It's getting too much for me. They should do this little break. Everybody gives you a break.
Yeah.
A little bit of here and there that keeps us going.
How long have you had your service, sir?
I've had cable since they first came into the city. I'm one of the first customers. Before they even came into the city, they had my money. They had my money while I was waiting for them to come in.
Uh-huh. So what did you receive a letter there, the letter that they sent you on,
I did.
did you get that?
Yep.
And what did you think of that letter?
Well, I think that's a lot of baloney
Uh-huh.
between you and I.
Uh-huh.
They should really think about the people, not the pocketbook. They're always worried about how much they're going to make and how much they're going to make. I bet you the guy there that's in charge makes about $50,000 a year.
Oh, that's nothing. The guy who's in charge made $78 million in 1990.
Could you hear that?
And I'm having a rough time getting by with what I'm getting.
$78 million bucks.
I'll take 10%. How's that sound?
Well, actually, on the May, did you see the Alderman's meeting on May 28th?
No, I
don't know if you, well, we're showing some excerpts from there, and Paul Train said on there that they would not accept a contract from Warner unless there was a senior discount.
I'll throw them out, that's all.
And
Get somebody else.
Well, that's
Get
another...
the guy from Boston. They're supposed to be pretty good, ain't they? The ones that are giving it to Boston?
Who do you know who's in Boston?
Cablevision.
Cablevision?
They're supposed to be pretty good. They're treating the people pretty well over there.
Uh-huh.
We don't need these bums. Get somebody else.
Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to say?
That's about it.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for your call.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Hello?
Hello.
Hello, you're on the air.
Thank you. I'm not a senior citizen, but I think the senior citizen should be given a discount.
Uh-huh.
And also, I have no serious complaints with Warner, but I would like to see some competition. Maybe more channels would be offered to the viewers.
Uh-huh. Do you watch public access? Well, other than tonight, do you watch public access?
Periodically, I try and tune in to the meetings of the city council just to see what's going on and stay informed.
Uh-huh.
And I find it very informative, and I thank you for putting it on the air.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's when you play with these numbers, it gets very difficult to understand. Now, SCAT would get more money in this 5% gross revenue fee, but they would lose, my understanding is like $16,000, which they get now. So they get some money and they lose some money. Overall, they would probably get more.
A little bit.
But sometimes it's not as much as you think.
You know, I think what would help is, as you say, the equipment is running down, as you say. It would be nice. Maybe the funds would help you get upgraded equipment.
Yes, that's what we're planning on. That's what we're planning on.
Have you ever been down here to the old firehouse?
No, I haven't.
Well, someday you should come down and stop in, and you can see the equipment, how it starts to lean, and we actually do very wonderful work, I think, with the equipment that we have. There's some really wonderful people down here.
You do, from what I've seen, for not being, in a sense of word, professionals. I think you do an excellent job.
Well,
please keep up the good work.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your call.
Right, bye-bye.
Good night. Bye-bye.
Wait a minute.
Hello?
I've got wrong line.
Oh, wrong line. Okay. Well, now we're eavesdropping a little bit. Well, are we ready to go to the? We're going to go to the tape, and you can see a little bit more of the Alderman's meeting that was held on May the 28th. And at that meeting, they were voting on whether the Alderman would agree to give 5% negotiating tool for Mr. Train. So again, please call in at 628-8826. If you call in while this tape is on, I promise we'll break in and put you on the air rather than watch the tape. So let's watch the tape.
On how much SCAT would get. And unfortunately for SCAT, they've been level funded for 10 years. So they've had the static amount of $85,000 from 1982 to 1992. The city is requesting 5% of gross revenue so that hopefully that if Warner's gross revenue grows, the money that comes into the city to give to groups like SCAT will also grow. Now, obviously, if their revenue went down, we're taking the risk that our revenue would go down. But based on past performance, that's a risk that I'd take any day of the week.
So is it your feeling that SCAT will be better funded than they are under the present arrangement?
Yeah, we're projecting right now a increase in revenue for SCAT of between 20 and 30%.
Yeah. I think that's important for people to know because most of us think of cable as something we turn on and we can watch more channels than we used to be able to. But between the community, the city cable with George Wood and his people, and SCAT, they really do a tremendous job. They do a lot of teaching of people who want to learn the business, and it's a very impressive setup that we have in this city. Again, I think the people who are doing the applauding are the ones who should be applauded, quite frankly, because a lot of them are SCAT and city cable people. And we do thank you for all you do. Thanks.
Helen, if I could,
Certainly.
you know, people like George Wood who work in my office do put a lot of hours in. And one of the things that we are trying to do with the additional money is take the things that SCAT has done and that City Cable has done and bring it to the high school, bring it to the educational system to train students in working with the camera, make them produce their own programming so they have their own news show, so they can use it as a tool to educate people. And that's what we're trying to do. And we're trying to take what they've shown to me and to others and bring it to the classroom.
I understand that, and we talked about that 2 weeks ago. I think it's very important that the people in this city understand the need for the spread of knowledge and communications because it's changed so much over the last 10 years. Thank you, Paul.
Recognize Alderman Taylor, then Bonomo.
Through you, Mr. President, to Mr. Train. Mr. Train, what type of time frame are we dealing with to approve this franchise fee?
Well, I'm hoping it gets approved tonight, but
Is there a window involved here? In other words, the contract needs to be signed at what point?
well, we're entering the final set of negotiations on the contract now. The contract expires July 28th of this year, so we're finalizing our negotiations, and obviously to negotiate in a strong position, we need to come in with 5% of gross and at least negotiate from that standpoint.
On the 5%, do you have the money broken down as to where this money actually is going to go? Now, the figures that you gave us was $360,000. Is that correct, if we go to the 5%?
That's correct.
How much of an increase is that over the 3%?
Again,
Approximately, can you project that? Or?
the only difference in terms of the total monies paid, see, what Warner tries to do is break it down to what the franchise fee is. And if you look at the franchise fee alone, which today is $115,000 versus the 5% is $360,000. That's how they look at it. That's how they're trying to spin it out. That's how they're trying to make it known to residents. The reality is they pay other monies that total 5% of gross. So the difference between what they pay to the city next year and what they pay to the city this year is $500. That's it.
So in other words, let me see if I understand this correctly. You showed us some charts there, and one figure you showed us was $359,000. That's with the 3% and the additional monies that come from Warner. The next chart you showed us indicated that there would be an amount of $360,000. That's only $1,000 above what we get now. Obviously, we must be getting more than $1,000 with the 5%.
No, actually, Tom, we're getting $500, not $1,000. The reason, again, they're paying based on a fixed rate. So they know that they're going to pay from 1982 to 92 every year. They're going to pay they paid $85,000 to SCAT, $130,000 for this, $16,000 for that. All that totaled to $359,500 last year. They don't want to tie it to gross revenue, Tom, which would this year be about the same, $500 difference. Because if their revenue skyrockets like it did on the last license, the money paid to the city, to SCAT, to the school system, also goes up. They would rather come in and say to me, I'll pay you even more than $360, but just make it a flat fee. Don't tie it to gross revenue. And they've actually made that proposal to me.
I guess I must be missing something. Obviously, if we go to 5%, we're going to make more money. There's going to be more money coming back to the city, more than $500, I would hope. I mean, are you saying if we go to 5%, then all these other charges that Warner Cable has, or monies that we receive, will no longer receive, like the $115,000 or the $130,000 for rent of the SCAT building, $85,000? Isn't the 5% over and above that?
No. Those charges would disappear. We're saying we'll pay all those things from the 5% of gross revenue.
They're going to stop?
Okay?
Well, wait 1 second.
What I was going to say was...
Wait. Okay, go ahead.
Okay,
Yeah.
I am a senior citizen.
Oh, wonderful.
And I have been a subscriber to cable for as long as we've had us in the city of Somerville. And I can say you can take two sets of figures.
Uh-huh.
And I can do them once, and you can do them another.
Uh-huh.
You take the same set of figures, and by the time you get around to fooling around, put this one here and put this figure there, you wouldn't know they were the same set of figures.
Yeah. So who do you trust then? Who do you know?
Well, I assume Paul Train.
You assume Paul Train, uh-huh.
Because some simple reason. He gets the figures from Warner Cable.
Uh-huh.
So what they give him is what they want him to see.
Uh-huh.
That's all. And I know, as I said, I've seen it done because when I worked, was an accountant.
Uh-huh.
So I've seen it done.
So what do you think it's a good idea that this new contract that they tie, you know, the percentage to gross revenue, so if it goes up, we get more money?
Sure. Because they're going to make the money anyway.
Uh-huh.
That's true. You've got a good point there.
And I mean, so the way they talk in their letter, want to talk, is if the Board of Aldermen were the ones that made the rate increase. The board doesn't set the rates, they set them.
Right, that's true.
And I mean, and I don't know whether they think the people of Somerville are dumb or what. But they're not. They're really not.
No. Well, did you see that meeting of May 28th, the Alderman meeting?
I watched. That's one thing I'm kept on the Alderman and School Committee, because I think the people of Somerville are really follow them. I had to go to an elderly center, and you'd be amazed the day after an Alderman's meeting how many of them have watched it.
Well, Mr. Bonomo at that meeting spoke how highly educated the public is in Somerville.
I know. I always
watching.
I always remember. This is quite a few years ago. I went to a rally for I think it was for Gene Broom, but I'm not sure. And Frank Becky was there, and he was talking, and I said, I see you on TV. I said, I watch you all. He said, do you always watch it? I said, oh, yeah. I said, it's the best show on earth.
Uh-huh.
And people watch it, and that's what cable has done.
Well, you're right, and especially for seniors, you really can't go out at 8 o'clock at night and stay there till midnight, but you can stay cozy in your house and turn on the set.
That's right.
And follow it. It is very important for people to be able to see their elected officials at work.
And you may have a different idea, I'm not saying we don't, but you can tell who is for you all the time.
So what do you think about the senior discount?
I think we should have it. But I'm not. Paul said I think that night 7 to 10. I'd like to see it 10%.
Oh, 10%.
Oh, 10%, yeah.
Well, I think after our last caller we were speaking to, that's what Mr. Train said, that they were not going to accept a contract without an elder discount, because it appears that all the communities in the surrounding area all have a senior discount.
I think Joe Macaluso also said that was it May 29th?
Well, Joe Macaluso wasn't there on the 29th, but he might have said it on the 28th, but he might have said it on the earlier meeting. I feel pretty confident that the city will be able to negotiate a senior discount. It's hard to be against something like that.
Especially where I wouldn't be surprised that half their subscribers are seniors.
I think a lot of their subscribers are seniors. Sure, absolutely.
What are your favorite programs on cable that you watch?
Right now, the Board of Aldermen.
Oh, really?
I wouldn't miss that show.
Do you watch Dead Air Live often?
I don't really watch. I usually watch Bob Colt.
Bob Colt,
I will always watch Bob Colt on Thursday night. And I may watch every now and then. It's really not any favorite, But as I say, especially the Board of Aldermen School Committee, because I think that's my money they're spending. And I think we should know what they're spending and how.
That's
You're
correct. That's how busy the studio is today. They shot the Bob Colt show today in
Who's
here.
on?
I wasn't here. There was a
I
candidate.
think it's the woman who's running for Peter Vellucci's seat.
Right.
Oh,
Then she'll probably, I think that she'll...
Carol?
Yeah.
Karen
Karen,
Umansky.
that's it, right.
Very good, yes. And they shot that show from like about 4:45 to 5:15, and we came in here at 6 o'clock and set this show
Oh,
up.
I'll watch it Thursday night.
I think she'll be on either next week or the week after.
Oh, okay.
But we do need new equipment to keep
Oh, I'm
producing
not
our
sa-
shows.
Anything like that gets old.
Yes, no kidding.
Okay, thank you for talking.
Okay,
Nice
thank you
talking
very
to
much for
Bye.
calling. Bye-bye. Oh, that audio person hates me when I do that. But anyway, maybe Abigail, you can bring us up to date. We know on Channel 16 they talked tonight about the passage of the 5%, and you could bring us up to date?
Right. Well, we saw a little bit earlier the clips from earlier, a couple of weeks ago in the Board of Aldermen chambers when the debate was happening over the 5%. Basically, the aldermen had to simply pass whether Paul Train from the Office of Communications could go into negotiations and push for the whole 5%. Now, that's the limit that the federal government sets that says you can ask for up to 5%. And the aldermen, after a long debate, the aldermen did pass that amount, which was great, and we really struggled with them to make sure that that would happen. I believe, what I understand is that Paul came on Channel 16 earlier this evening and said that in negotiations it appears that Warner is ready to accept that 5% figure, and that's good news for all of us.
Mm-hmm. Let's try and get another call here. Hello? Oh, hello?
I think they might have hung up.
Well, I think they hung up. Hello? No? Hello?
You were on there.
No. Well, we lost them. Well, we're going to... Well, please call back. That number was 628-8826. If you can... yeah, 628-8826. Give us a call. We're starting to run towards the end of the show here, but we still have some time to take your calls. And we're actually going to go see a little bit more of the tape from the May 28th Aldermen's meeting about if we had more money in the city, if we got the 5% tied to gross revenues and the money was here, some things that could happen in the city of Somerville. So let's get ready to see that tape and let's roll it, but also call 628-8826 and give us a call.
Unusual in my character, and I hope tonight, well, I won't have to do the same. I don't see anybody in the room from Warner, and so that might help me. But I'm not a senior, and I did receive the mailing. It was not sent registered receipt or at the post office. It did come to my door. And I won't tonight go through what I went through 2 weeks ago because of the same issues. Let me begin by saying, Paul, that we had a very brief chance to chat today, and I tried to get back to you, but it was quite late in the day, about 7:15, and I was unable to reach you, Paul. So I want to apologize for not having raised these points that I'm going to raise this evening. Secondly, let me say that I'm on record of supporting the 5%. I think it's very imperative that the city get as much as it possibly can. I have received some constituent phone calls, and I'll tell you, Somerville's a very educated community, because when you explain to constituents that the rate has gone up 8 times, and this is the first time they've ever been asked to mobilize themselves as subscribers against the rate increase, and all the other 7 of the 8 times they were not asked why. The reason was very simple, is because Warner does not want to be told by its subscribers when they increase their rates they shouldn't increase their rates, but yet they want to tell the city that they shouldn't increase their share of the franchise fee. So my hat's off to the city, because people are very educated and they do understand it. Paul, when you presented the charts, I have some questions. First of all, you indicated that the finance fee is presently $115,000. That comes to the city. Where does that go?
That goes directly per the 1982 agreement. It started out and went to what was called the Office of Cable Television, and then became the Office of Telecommunications, which became the Office of Communications. So all that money goes there, and that $115,000, and I can give you an idea, like this year, where that money was spent in each of its preceding years, but particularly this year where we're renewing a contract. We pay our attorney and outside legal counsel to help us negotiate the contract. We take public input, hold public meetings, pay stenographers, do the typical things that you do. We have 2 full-time programming directors that produce programming such as the Alderman's Hour and the Mayor's Report and various other programs, a couple of other part-time people, and that's it.
But do all of the $115,000 go towards cable-related activity?
Yeah, let me clear. I try to make that point because of the misleading information that want to put out. Every single cent of that money goes to cable-related things, despite the fact that the federal law allows us to spend it on anything that we choose. In other words, if the mayor chose to spend it on constructing a street, he could do that under the law. But he has said he'd like it to remain and keep things like our office going so we can protect consumers. And for instance, this week alone, based on the letter that came in, we got over 350 phone calls in the last 2 days. And I can tell you that for every 10 calls, 8 or 9 people said one thing to me and my staff: bring competition. I am sick and tired of rate increases. And John, I think you said a very important thing. People are very smart when it comes to cable-related issues in this city. And they know that they haven't heard boo from Warner in 7 or 8 years. And now all of a sudden they're getting a letter that says, I'm your friend, join with me. People aren't stupid and they realize exactly what's going on, and I think most of the calls have been very supportive.
Paul, as I understand the renewal process, and I was in this chambers 10 years ago when we dealt with it, so I work from that premise, and I don't think it has changed that drastically. There is a window of about 3 years that we have in dealing with the renewal process. The only role that this board has in that entire process is the issue that is before us. Recognizing that, it is our only opportunity to express concerns we have not only about the franchise fees or about the process itself. So I make those comments realizing this is the only chance I'm going to have to make these comments. If there is about 3 years to negotiate, my review of the activities is that we began to sit down and negotiate sometime last February, March, which now leaves us less than the 3 years. It leaves us about 1.5 years. We have had public hearings. We have put an RFP out. We've gotten an RFP back. And we have about 4 months to review the RFP, enter into negotiations, sign the documents, and then have a renewal in place. Is that a fair assessment of the schedule?
Well, I would backtrack a little that the process actually started in May of 1990 when a public hearing was held in this room on the issues relating to cable television. A second public hearing was held, both of which were televised, in February of 1991. In negotiations, the negotiating part and the RFP part, I think you're 100% correct that we've been doing it. The RFP was released by the city on February 11th, 1992, and received back Warner's response 6 weeks later.
Okay.
Well, it's getting near the end of your last chance. My name is Lee Walworth. You're watching Dead Air Live. I'm here tonight with Abigail Norman from SCAT. And this is your last chance to call in at 628-8826 and talk to us about the cable negotiations and the new contract coming up. So we're starting to get near the end of the show. But we were going to see a little piece that was on the next segment that Mr. Bonomo talked about. And he talked about a very important item, and that is the independence of SCAT. What he talked about at the Alderman's meeting on May 28th was how always in the past SCAT has been independent from City Hall and whoever the mayor is there, whether they, right now they have a very good relationship with Mayor Capuano. I've read in the Journal how he's happy with what SCAT's doing and approves of it, but that may not always be true. And how important is it for SCAT to remain independent and have an independent funding source?
I think SCAT's independence is actually paramount. And again, you know, I don't mean to sound like a civics teacher, but if you look at the history of the United States, the independence of the press is absolutely crucial, and the separation of the press from government control. is crucial. You know, if you look at Eastern Europe nowadays, that's one of the things that's a big liberation for people, is to be able to start having a press separate from the government. Of course, that's, you know, not like anything we could expect in Somerville, but I think the basic principle is there, and we'll all remember that from 8th grade history. The separation of press as the Fifth Estate is really, really crucial. So that's kind of where we are. What SCAT, the way SCAT functions is that we're kind of a resource for the people of Somerville. We're not really like any other cable channel. What we do is we provide the resources so that you from the Somerville Producers Group and you out there from the public can walk in the door, learn how to use the equipment, and then use it to say and make images about anything that you really want to, without the mayor, the staff of SCAT, your neighbor, or anybody telling you you can't say that. And that's what's really unique about public access. And I think that independence of a public access center is really at the heart of the matter. Now, you know, we're talking here about whether money for SCAT comes through the city or whether it comes directly from the cable company. In point of fact, in either way, SCAT will survive and will continue to grow and thrive and serve the people of Somerville. We would prefer to get our money directly from the cable company, a cold check. Then the city can enforce the cable company to pay that check on time, and everybody's happy. Otherwise, you know, you never know when a hostile administration might want to withhold a check because they don't agree with something somebody has said. And we don't want to get in that kind of a tricky situation. Right now, as you point out, we're in a good relationship with City Hall, and SCAT has enjoyed a good relationship with City Hall really throughout its history. But you really don't know when an administration might come in that isn't happy with something someone says. It's very important.
Would you ever envision that City Hall would try to control the purse strings, and if they didn't like what you were programming down here, is that a fear that?
It's a fear that I have, not because I think it's going to happen now or tomorrow or next year or in this administration, but because I'm not going to always be here, and Mayor Capuano is not always going to be here. And
you're not always going to be here?
And you really have, as a good manager, you really have to look forward into the future when individuals will have completely changed, but the structure needs to be sound.
Well, I wonder if I can ask you even maybe more on a personal level now that here you've endured all this, the changing of the guard here and as executive directors, and you're about to come upon this new contract, and if more money comes in, how do you see yourself just holding on, and how will things change down at SCAT if the money starts to come in?
If we get a little bit of money, I think the first thing we'll do is give people some raises. People's salaries here are absolutely terrible. And I'm not just really speaking for myself, but for the other hardworking folks who work here. And I'm afraid to even mention the salaries on the air because they're so embarrassing. They're really, really bad. In fact, Cambridge Community Television did a survey of salaries in the area for centers such as ours, and they had to drop SCAT from the list because we pulled their average down so much that they couldn't even, it skewed their numbers too much. It's just way, way low. And, you know, we've also been closed 2 days a week for the past 2 years, and we'd really like to open back up at least one more day a week. We're only open one weekend today, and that's just not enough for Somerville. We need more technical support. And of course, the equipment is a separate issue. We'll get a separate grant for that, and that'll be, you know, all of us are looking forward to that. That's going to be a wonderful boon for Somerville.
Do you see yourself adding more staff?
Not immediately. We won't be able to afford that with the numbers that we're talking about. No, we really won't. I'd like to, but I think it's something we have to look forward to in the future.
But I know you now have someone working here, Roberto.
Right.
Who I work at the high school myself, and I've seen him up there working with teenagers. Now he comes through CAS.
That's right. The Community Action Agency of Somerville has started a new campaign called the Somerville Community Partnership to basically do community organizing in the city with the idea of getting towards the problems of drug and alcohol abuse in the city, kind of through a campaign to create a sense of community and create a structure in which all of us as Somerville residents and neighbors can work together to make the city a better place to live. Now, as part of that grant, which is federal funds, SCAT has been able to hire Roberto Aravallo to work with a group of teenagers to teach them television production and work with them to produce short programs that will basically reflect Somerville back to itself. The project is called the Mirror Project, and it's working out wonderfully. It's really an exciting project, but it's important to remember that that's grant money that came to SCAT not through the city, not through Warner, but through a separate source.
You know, we're going to go to a quick call, And let's, hello? What?
Job for Somerville, and I really hope that you get what you want under the new contract.
Well, I really appreciate your phone call, and we're starting to run out of time. And you know, we cut off the first part of your sentence. You weren't here on the speakerphone here. Could you just say that once again real quick?
Sure. I just wanted to say that I think SCAT is doing a great job for Somerville, and I want to see SCAT continue and to thrive and to get what you want under the new contract.
Well, thank you very much for calling.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, it does, you know, I think about SCAT. I've been here, I think, 2 years myself now, and never dreamed that I would learn to run a camera, be a director, be a host.
Sit there asking for phone calls on the air.
Sit there asking for phone. And you know what I'd like, though, if we get more equipment, I would like a phone that you, I know they have phones that you don't have to
That's right.
pick it up, and I feel a little strange here on the air doing this.
Right.
But maybe we could put that into the budget to get a phone, because I'd like to see more shows that we get more of Somerville coming on. But we're running out of time right now, and I would just like to say thank you very much, Abigail, for coming. I appreciate you sitting through this hour with me. I'd also like to thank City Cable for giving us the tape of the Alderman's meeting from May 28th. Appreciate that. And I'd like to thank all the members of SCAT, and especially the Somerville Producers Group. That people work very hard, and we put these shows together, sometime with a skeleton crew, but I appreciate the work to do, and especially to all you folks out there. Your bill may have gone up, but we're working hard for you. So good night, thank you very much, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. You can also watch this show Thursday night of this week coming up. So thank you and good night.